A very good evening, Your Excellencies, very distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I must applaud how early we are, how timely we are for today's event. We say a warm welcome. My time is 4 p.m. and this was the time scheduled for the 2023 Independence Day lecture organized by the Society of Petroleum Engineers Abuja section. We're saying a warm welcome to all of our very distinguished speakers. We say a warm welcome to all of our very distinguished committee members. We say a warm welcome to all distinguished members of the Society of Petroleum Engineers Abuja section. Please do me a favor, kindly remind your friends, your colleagues in their WhatsApp groups that the event started. I will give us the opportunity to do that for just 2 minutes. And in 2 minutes, we continue with the course of today's event. But before we continue, kindly drop a chat in the chat box. Where are you joining us from? Which part of Nigeria, which part of Africa, which part of the world are you joining us from? Just let me know your name, where you're joining us from, and what peculiar expectation do you have for the Nigerian energy industry? What wish do you have for the Nigerian energy industry at 63? What peculiar expectation do you wish for the Nigerian energy industry at 63? Of course, today's theme is Nigeria at 63, the role of energy independence on national development. There's so much to talk about this. We are so pleased to have an array of phenomenal speakers who would do justice to this theme. So let me know your thoughts in the chat box. What are your peculiar expectations for the energy industry in Nigeria? What do you wish you can see in the energy industry? What is something you hope to derive from the growing and the ever-evolving energy industry in Nigeria? As you do so, kindly endeavor to also share the link on your WhatsApp platforms and to all of your friends. Thank you. I'm reading the chats. Where are you joining us from? And what peculiar expectation do you have or do you wish for the Nigerian energy industry? I hope to read your chats any moment from now. While we await the reading of the chat, the SP is very particular about safety, so I will continue with the safety brief. Please, for the course of this event, we advise that you leave your microphone on mute if you are not speaking, so as not to cause an interference during the course of this event. We also advise that you raise your hands up using the chat box if you want to speak, and you will be unmuted. Use C for comments and Q before your questions. We also advise for all of those that are driving, endeavor to park your car in a safe space so as not to have an accident. And the last but not the least of our safety brief, if you are home, please don't take your device to the kitchen so as not to have a gas explosion. We believe we would have a very, very, very safe deliberation. Let me go back to the comment section and see what you have from me. Good evening, everyone. I am Dr. Ifeyinwa Ijoma Obianyo. I'm joining from Nile University of Nigeria, Abuja. I wish to see effective diversification of different sources of energy in Nigeria. You are right, ma'am. Of course, I agree with you. There's a need to diversify our energy resources in Nigeria. Awesome, 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 awesome. Keep dropping your comments. Let's see what are your expectations of the Nigerian energy industry. Probably from 10 years from now, what do you hope to see? Okay, we are still reading the chat while we accept participants. For those just joining, welcome, welcome, welcome. This event is organized by the Society of Petroleum Engineers Abuja section. And just on your screen, you can see the safety brief. You can see the agenda for today's event. The event is going to be very exciting. It's going to be very exciting, brainstorming, and there's so much to learn from today. Let's continue the event by introducing some of our very distinguished personalities that have joined us here today. We start by saying a warm welcome to the section chairman, our leader, our pride, the section chairman of SP Abuja section, who has joined this event. We say a warm welcome to Engineer Victor Anoche. Welcome, sir. Thank you for being part of us, and thank you for spearheading the section in an amazing way. Welcome, sir. Engineer Victor Anoche, please confirm you can hear me. Okay, I believe he's going to comment. Okay, I'm just seeing some chats. Uchenna from Auchi Polytechnic, Emerald Institute, PH, an economic student, is expecting an inciting and educating lecture. I believe you would have just that. Okay, I continue recognizing. A warm welcome to our section chair, Engineer Victor Anoche. Thank you, sir, for being part of us. We also say a warm welcome to the programs chair of SP Abuja section who has joined us virtually. We speak of Dr. Ikechukwu Okafor. Welcome, sir, and thank you for being part of us.
Thank you, Akpan. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, sir. We welcome all of our phenomenal speakers. Speaking of the keynote speaker, the Abuja School of Political Thoughts and Chair, Center for Public Policy and Research. Our keynote speaker for today, Dr. Sam Amadi. Welcome, sir, and thank you for being part of us today. Confirm you can hear me, Dr. Sam Amadi. We'd like to hear from you. Welcome, sir. Okay, I know I saw a keynote speaker online. Kindly unmute yourself, sir. Welcome our keynote speaker once again. We also say a warm welcome to the President, Nigerian Association of Energy Economics, Professor Yinka Omorogbe, SAN, Senior Advocate of Nigeria. Thank you so much, ma'am, for being part of us today. We say a warm welcome. Please confirm you can hear me, ma'am.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. And of course, the last but not the least of our speakers, the President of the African University of Science and Technology, Professor Peter Onwalu, AFAS. Welcome, sir, and thank you for accepting to be part of this lecture today. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We also say a warm welcome to the committee chair of the 2023 IDL Planning Committee. We speak of Dr. Morgan Liu Akpane. Welcome to you, sir. Thank you for being part of us today.
Thank you very much for the privilege and honor.
Of course, we welcome all of the committee members. I can see Zalifat Halidi, who is the Diversity and Inclusion Chair online. I can see Abdul Rafi Egbeyemi, who is also a committee member and the alternate secretary online. And of course, in person here with me at the control room, we have the treasurer of SP Abuja section still here with us. We welcome all of our distinguished and senior BOT members of the Society of Petroleum Engineers. We welcome friends from sister organizations and NGOs. Welcome distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, I want to say a warm welcome to the section chair, Engineer Victor Anoche. So please confirm you can hear me now.
Yes, Akpan, I can hear you. Thank you very much.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much, sir, for your sterling leadership in SP Abuja section. Of course, once again, the safety brief, we kindly advise that for the course of this event, kindly leave your microphone on mute so that you don't cause interference. This event is probably going to last for about 2 hours. So we advise that you give us all of your absolute attention. We welcome everybody. We are seeing your comments. Keep dropping your comments. And of course, when the speakers drop some nuggets, please type it down on the comment section. Let's make this as engaging and as interesting as possible. We're switching gears immediately to hear from our leader, our pride. Speaking of the section chair of SP Abuja section, we'd like to welcome for his welcome address, Engineer Victor Anoche. So please, the virtual stage is yours.
Okay, thank you. Please confirm you can hear me.
Loud and clear, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm so sorry I can't join with my camera now. So as the event goes on, I will switch because I'm having some technical issues. So I want to thank everyone for coming, and first to welcome everyone to the 2023 Annual Independence Day Lecture of the Society of Petroleum Engineers Abuja session. This year's event with the theme, Nigeria at 63, the role of energy independence on national development, was carefully selected knowing the current economic situation of our dear country. We believe Nigeria has the potential and resources to be self-sufficient in energy. And we also understand that the government is also taking some steps. But today's event seeks to review what we've done in the past, look at the challenges confronting us and proper solution to regulators and other key players for Nigeria to attain independence for national development. I can assure you today's event will be properly documented and shared with regulators and key players in the sector. We've lined up very experienced speakers who are experts in the team. I want to thank them for accepting to speak to Dr. Sam Amadi, Professor Morigbe, and Professor Nwolu, and our own moderator, Odafe, for joining us today, and to all our members and guests, and also the committee that is in charge of today's event, led by our own Dr. Leo Morgan. I say thank you for putting this together, and thank you everyone for joining. I believe at the end of the day, we are going to have a good deliberation. Thank you, Akpan.
Thank you so much, Section Chief, for that very brief opening remark. We'd like to say a warm welcome to our moderator. Very warm welcome to our moderator. Thank you, sir, for accepting to moderate this event, even on your very busy schedule. We're saying a warm welcome to the technical assistant to the Authority Chief Executive on HSEC matters of the Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority, Atebe Odafe Jerome. Welcome, sir. We'd like to hear your voice, sir. A moderator? Confirm you can hear me. Welcome, sir. Okay. We celebrate our student affairs chair, who is also here with all of the students from all of our different sections. Thank you and welcome to Professor Kafayat Adeyemi. Welcome, ma'am. We celebrate you. We're switching gears immediately. To having the opening remark by the committee chair of the Independence Day Lecture Planning. Speaking of Dr. Morgan Akpan, his team has done an amazing work coordinating this event and making it a success. Dr. Leo Akpan, would like to hear from you, sir.
Thank you very much, Master of Ceremony. Mine is about the easiest and cheapest work to do here, and I'm going to perform it with utmost dispatch. Let me start by thanking the leadership of SPE Abuja section for considering me worthy to play this role. By the way, when the letter of nomination got to me, I was actually literally taken aback, because looking at my antecedents in SPE, I didn't consider myself worthy of such a role. Again, looking again at the heavyweights in the industry, in the sector, in Abuja alone. For me, I think SPE is a kind of organization that wants to bring the best in people, bring out the best in people, so that they give you challenges. And when they raise the stakes, all you need to do as a professional is to up your game. So on that note, I want to really thank the leadership of SPE Abuja section for the opportunity. I am literally standing on the shoulders of giants, because I'm being given credit for, I will say, the work I did not do. Practically all the work have been done by committee members, and I'm going to name them. You're talking about Nana Rinti, who is right here. She had to come all the way from her office to be a part of this. You're talking about Abdul Rafai Egbeyemi, who is out of town, otherwise will be here physically. Talking about Salifat Alidu, she's online. And then Precious Okon, who is not in town. Fantastic team, if you ask me. If you have another opportunity to serve SPE, I don't mind if you set up this team for me to work with. My appreciation also goes to the leadership of AUST, that is having Professor, my president, Professor Onwalu, as the president. This is happening. Why? Because of the leadership. If the leadership of AUST did not give approval, we will not be coordinating this lecture from this ultra-modern facility provided by the African Development Bank. So my gratitude goes to my president, somebody I hope one day I'll have the opportunity of writing and speaking about. A mentor, and by the way, he started mentoring me when he didn't know about me, when he was the DG of raw materials, somebody you want to meet, and I consider myself very privileged to be working with him today. There's something I must say. Today, I will probably be pushing files as non-academic. I was doing that 1 or 2 years ago until last year when I was converted to an academic. And people are saying I'm doing my work well. But you see, that is leadership. He was able to identify me as somebody who has something to offer in the academic space and converted me, having completed my PhD. So my gratitude goes to him. Somebody, again, I repeat, someday I will have the opportunity of writing and speaking about. And of course, somebody just walked in, that is the coordinator or somebody in charge of the ultra-modern facility we are transmitting from. That is, I repeat, the AUST Inspire facility, which I have spoken about repeatedly. His name is Dr. Vitaly Sanye, a wonderful colleague of mine. He has inspired and encouraged me over the years. He has been here, I remember, since 2009, and as a wide-eyed, always encouraging. And here I am today, having the privilege to interface with him. So the people that have the knowledge and the expertise are going to speak. So for me, it's just thanks, and nothing more. Again, before I vacate this virtual podium, I'm going to acknowledge again Dr. Sam Amadi, who happened to be my senior contemporary at the University of Calabar. We were doing our LUTA there, doing our social and leadership activities in the university. We didn't actually know we were preparing ourselves for some roles. Here we are today. We have regrouped, and what are we doing? Helping to build our country at another level. Thank you very much, everyone. I vacate now for the rest of the items of the program. Thank you, Mr. Master of Ceremony. Thank you.
I would say we should give a virtual round of applause for the phenomenal Dr. Muga Nakpan. Thank you so much, sir, for accepting to share your wealth of knowledge by chairing the committee for this year's 2023 IDL. We're switching gears immediately, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, to listen to our keynote speaker. At this juncture, our advice, if you have a biro, you have a pen, have a notepad, probably this is the time you would love to make use of it. How can Nigeria attain energy independence? Of course, we understand how peculiar energy is to the country. This lecture seeks to present an overview of the efforts made by Nigeria over the years to attain energy independence, its diagnosis, the challenges confronting the vision, while prescribing steps to achieve this vision. A very, very first speaker for today, of course, he is the keynote speaker for today, is a policy strategist and a law and government expert. He is the director of the Abuja School of Social and Political Thought and a visiting professor at the Emerald Energy Institute at the University of Port Harcourt. He is the chair of the Development Law Group of the Nigerian Bar Association section on Public Interest Law and Development, SPIDAL, which he is as a founding council member. He was associate professor and head of the Department of International Law and Jurisprudence at Bayes University, Abuja, until June 2021. He is a visiting research fellow at the Nigerian Institute of Advanced Legal Studies from 2016 to 2018. Between 2010 and 2015, He was the chairman and CEO of the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission, NERC. He has been editor of journals and held lecturing and advisory positions in universities, government institutions, and international organizations. Of course, Dr. Amadi has been a member of several boards, including the UN Advisory Council on Global Electricity Initiative, Section on Public Interest and Development Law of the Nigerian Bar Association, Center of Law and Social Action, CLASA, CLASA, and Moldova Foundation, a Washington-based policy think tank. He is the chair of the board of trustee of Albino Association of Nigeria and Civil Liberties Organization, Abuja branch. He has been chairman of some Senate technical committees, including Senate Technical Committee on Review of Nigeria's Transport Sector Bills and Senate Technical Committee on Review of Nigeria's Competition and Consumer Protection Commission Bill. He was a member of the Presidential Committee on Reform Processes in the Public Service of Nigeria and was a consultant, a member of the Ministerial Committee on Blood oil constituted by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in 2009. I can go on and on the achievements of our phenomenal keynote speaker. This juncture, Your Excellencies, very distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to crave your indulgence to take your notes, pads, because you're about to listen to a think tank. Please help me welcome the Abuja School of Political Thoughts and Chair, Center for Public Policy and Research, for his keynote address. Dr. Sam Amadi, the stage is yours. Thank you, sir.
Very much, and thank you to the organizers and Professor my sister who is going to speak after me. I'll just have a small slide I will share. Then I will just go through, if I just briefly. I have 20 minutes, so I would like to use the 20 minutes. Quick and precise some points, some things I'm not precise, but some I will precise. Okay. So I just want to first to talk about to say that I'll just highlight the status of the energy supply in Nigeria, especially power, electricity, and then aspect of gas, and how it affects the strategic national development efforts. I'll also talk about, I hope you're hearing me first.
Loud and clear, sir, we're hearing you.
Yes,
Hello?
yes, we
Am I
can.
audible?
Yes, we can. Loud and clear.
Loud and clear.
Sure. So it won't be too technical, but I will utilize some technical knowledge and basically make it practical, and then maybe some policy interventions. There will be a roundtable, so I wouldn't be more specific. For understanding energy independence, for me, it has some relationship to energy security. The International Energy Association defines it more in terms of uninterrupted availability of energy sources at affordable prices. So I say that this definition also relates to energy dependence, with the addition, in my view, that energy dependence will also reflect where the energy is coming from, especially in today's world, where we are seeing the revival of geopolitics. This is, before now, we had prided ourselves as the most globalized era in human history, with too much intensity, extensity, volatility, and of networks and connections. So we've got to a point where globalism has become the form of global politics, with its ideological neoliberal components. What that meant was that we think in terms of the global community more. But recent events have illustrated and highlighted the need for geopolitics, state sovereignty. So we're seeing now economic nationalism. We're seeing countries thinking about make in US, make back better, as Biden put it, or make America great, as Trump says. And then, of course, the US CHIP Act, the new CHIP Act, which tries to secure the US from too much dependence in Asia for chips and semiconductors. So basically, we are back to looking at nation state, and then energy dependence, not just about uninterrupted availability of energy supply, but also where they're coming from. Their energy needs are coming from outside the country or subject too much to global markets that's controlled outside you, then you might not have significant energy independence. So geopolitics is now the new currency of global politics. So all nations should consider where the energy is coming from as part of. So look at some of the ingredients of energy independence, of course, uninterrupted availability, affordability, reliability, renewability. There's this transition to green energy, green economy. So your energy sources being renewable is also part of it. Sustainability. Are we able to sustain capacity growth, sustain whether affordability, pricing mechanism, local control, in terms that if your energy needs are controlled by multinationals whose centers of policy outside their country, then you suffer some degree of volatility. And of course, peaceful supply of energy sources all over the world. We see bloody money, bloody oil. So there are many conflict zones. So you also want to ensure that your energy sources are not trapped in conflict areas where you may not have control. Okay. So in terms of uninterrupted availability, I talked about that. I said it would mean that the citizens of a country will be able to have energy whenever they need it. And this means you're looking at the extent of the grid connection in terms of generation, for electricity transmission, and even for gas, oil and gas. We're going to look about how much exploration, production, and also distribution. So all these matter. I know I said that availability, uninterrupted availability is a function both of engineering and as well as economics. It's also not just about capacity to roll out, maybe explore more oil, mine more oil, gas, or generate more power. It's also the financial framework, the commercial viability. So it be an intersection of the general capabilities as well as the economic policy making, framework and capability. So look at the Nigerian, if you use the energy security as uninterrupted availability. So let's look at Nigeria, about 215 million people, rate of urbanization by the World Bank estimates about 3% of Nigerians, which of the 213 million people live in urban areas. It's been projected that by 2050, Nigerians who live in urban areas will go up to 70%. And again, what this means for energy supply is, if you take, for example, you are expected to increase your energy available and supplied energy 5,000 every year or thereabout, because you're looking at 100 megawatts, 100 million megawatts for 100 million people. So if you're 200 million people, we're looking at 200,000 at least minimum of available electricity. So we have a very low generation capability as at 2016, not 2020. 2016, the peak we had was 7,887 megawatts. That is available, but generation was average available, not generated, was about 3,537. So this is the peak that are available. We could have generate at any time, and then in 2022 is about 4,000. So we have very low, on average, Nigerian business and homes from the grid have less than 4,000 megawatts to share for 400 million, 230 million people and business. In terms of metering, less than 50% of Nigerian households and consumers are metered. What that means, therefore, is the increase in inefficiencies and the energy losses. So of course, we have one of the lowest per capita wattage in the world, at least even in West Africa, which means with 112.63 kilowatt hour on average, we are one of the lowest, if not the lowest in the world. even places like Niger, they have lower energy capacity in terms of electricity, have more energy access than Nigeria. Ghana obviously does. Then the Republic that will supply some small percentage, have more wattage. Makes sense with the population and energy available energy. We are one of the most energy starved in the world. And that's why most of our businesses are self-supply. And that has implications for economic development. So look at the gas arena. Yes, we are now one of the greatest, one of the largest supplier or those who have availability of gas. We are even more defined as a gas country than an oil country. Our gas reserve lies in Africa, about 9th in the world. Potential is very high, even though production not that very high. Flare about 9%, with PIA coming in and the incentive of the way the sanctions and the incentive structures are lined up, and with the development of community engagement, and we might see that flare go down a little bit. Our domestic gas market is still very low, 20%. Most of this is export. Again, we have a framework. We have the gas master plan. I'm sure more of the discussants about the domestic supply obligation, which mandated significant increment in gas that's sent to local undertakings, power, fertilizer, and other domestic industries. We've not seen enough ramping up of that obligation. And so, of course, that the gas commercial framework, which the pricing policy. Now, all this now are now somewhat subsumed in the Petroleum Industry Act that has created regulators and so on assist to people. Now, I want to focus more, leave the technical issue, focus more on the policy side to say, how does this, matter for, what are the constitutional framework first for dealing with energy independent security? Chapter 2 of the Nigerian Constitution is not just a section for lawyers. It creates obligation, and that obligation is that the Nigerian state has an obligation to advance the economic and social well-being of Nigerian citizens, something close to the SDGs. Now, section 13 of that chapter makes it a constitutional obligation that is binding on everybody, every authority in Nigeria, to promote what they call social and economic well-being, which they call fundamental objectives of state policy. Now, there are debates among lawyers that, oh, this is not enforceable by virtue of what section 6C says. 6C says, look, yes, these rights, it can't go to court to ask that they enforce it the way they enforce chapter 2, the civil political rights. But even for Uputa and many other people, the argument I've made is that this does not mean that these are not constitutionally obligatory. They are binding on public officers to manage resources in a manner to advance these strategic national interests, which is to promote social and economic well-being of Nigerians. That is a constitutional legal obligation. It does not mean that you go to court as an individual and get a court to give an order, but it means that public officials are under legal obligation to do their best to promote this through policy, not through adjudication. This is because, theoretically, this is subject to what they call progressive realization. The courts, they are not judicially manageable. The court cannot say you should give everybody free education today, but policy can say you have to give free education within this period. You have to invest more of this amount of money. You have to follow up this policy. So they are more amenable to policy implementation than judicial adjudication. That's what that placement. But that creates an obligation. So what, like I show here, it follows that we have a high level of poverty. About 93 million people are poor. The World Bank estimates about 10 million people will go into more poverty this year based on income. But 135 million Nigerians are multi-dimensionally poor, which is actually the most important aspect of poverty because it relates to capability, what Amata Sen and Amata Nosborn calls the capability and functioning test of well-being. Multi-dimensional poverty deals more with human capability and functioning more than income-based poverty. And this obligation, therefore, poverty creates an obligation to harness all available resources, as the American philosopher John Rawls argued in his Theory of Justice. So the two principles, so to promote, an efficient economy that's self-reliant, and to manage the economy in a way that maximum welfare, freedom for every citizen, and the base of social justice and equality of opportunity. So really, the Nigerian state has a social justice obligation to ensure that we have enough access to energy resources to drive both personal well-being and economic development. So I now look at, arising from chapter 2, I tease out what I call 3 constitutional imperatives that underline national development and must reflect the policy about energy access. First, I call it the growth imperatives. The national economy must be managed in a manner that ensures growth. So there's been debate among political economists on redistribution and growth. Some people say, okay, dealing with poverty is through high growth. So if you grow, the tide lifts all boats. And some welfare economists, like some of us, argue that you need to focus growth that has inbuilt redistributive framework. For other Nigerian concerns, I think 2 of those perspectives come together. Growth, the best way for economic, for reducing poverty is growth. So you have to release energy resources to drive economic growth. The second, of course, you have to have social justice imperatives. How does the growth, deal with egalitarianism, equality, equal access? The third imperative is that because growth has to be managed, it is a regulatory imperative. You can't have an unregulated energy market, whether in terms of oil and gas, PMS. Regulation does not mean imposing pricing. It means that you have an obligation to oversight the working of the market to ensure, both equity and growth. And of course, I ask a question, is there a fourth imperative? Does the Constitution require a public enterprise imperative? The way the language of the Constitution is drafted seems to suggest that, but it's a more controversial issue. Okay, so now if you look at energy consumption and economic growth strategy, how does it matter? It does matter in many ways. If you look at growth theories, right from the classical economists, the neoclassical economists, institutional economists, Scoopetarians, or whether Paul Roma, human capital development, or you look at Douglas Law talking about institutions and how they're critical, or the Solov classical formulation. Everything is around energy consumption underlies both the exogenous and endogenous factors. So whether you're using exogenous factors that look at capital formation and technological build-up, or look at endogenous factors, look at knowledge, innovation, they all will require a degree of technology. And that once that's involved, involves use of energy. So energy from a theoretical conception is critical to driving a development strategy. You can look, I mentioned some of the leading theorists of development and argue that no matter which one you subscribe to, get back to the importance of energy. And of course, there are established research that shows that energy consumption and energy consumption generally underline strong economic development. But these are not, do not establish comprehensive causality, but essentially it shows the importance that even though we may not establish a linear line between and GDP growth, we can establish sufficient causality between energy supply and productivity in agriculture, in manufacturing. So if your grid is small, then compared to your population, your GDP will likely be small. So you can see some kind of correlation between GDP and grid size. That's the point I try to make. So if you look at how Asia developed, at the heart of it is agriculture, moving from agriculture to industrialization. So the point I want to make out here is that this growth could come from improvement in rural area through agro reform And then electricity is critical to drive it. You have power, energy, rural electrification is critical. So Nigeria sees rural electrification as a contracting thing. It's actually a way of boosting agro productivity in rural community. Nigeria has less than 50% or so access to electricity. Most community, the rural community access to electricity about 20-something%. That is a constraint to economic takeoff of rural Nigeria. That's really the point I want to highlight here. So I'll rush, okay? Of course, there is correlation between electricity, energy consumption, and manufacturing. Nigeria is trying to diversify from oil and gas. Since 2000, Nollywood, service sector has contributed a lot. Part of the largest economy in Africa, but taking South Africa, was when we factored in the contribution of Nollywood. And but then, if you don't have access to energy, then you might not have strong manufacturing performance. We saw that with the textile. Part of the reason why Kaduna area collapsed was because of no access to energy that raised the cost of production. Energy is about 30% of production costs, which means if you don't have it, then you might have a problem. Professor Ewayemi has argued that perhaps there's something because maybe there is a Nigerian, maybe there is electricity. We talk about Professor Ewayemi talks about the cost of electricity. We talk about the cost of oil. Yes, also the cost of electricity, because we have instant blackout, brownouts, and general unreliability of the grid. And if you look at even last month, we had about 1 week and about 3 total grid collapses. With that kind of unstable energy supply, you are not going to have a enduring transition to an industrial or medium economy. That's part of the textile. Okay, so I show further evidence that there's a correlation between infrastructure services and total factor productivity. And therefore, there is a quality of access to electricity and other energy services affect health, vaccines, and so on and so forth, and therefore they affect your human capital development as well as industrial development. These are just evidence to show how much there is strong relationship between access, reliable, sustainable, affordable, available energy, and economic development. So what has happened to the Nigerian sector? I want to use the power sector. The power sector actually reflects what has happened in also the gas and oil sector. We started as an unbundled, interestingly, Nigeria started as an unbundled power sector with island operations, just different places. 1974, it was bundled together with NEPA, and then in the late 1999, 2000, we started to bundle again. So we moved from centralized power to centralized power to vertically integrated, now to disintegrated. And so we do vertical unbundling, unbundling. We have liberalized, meaning we have allowed not just government but private sector to come in and play a role, whether in the oil and gas or sector. But commercialized, which is where the oil and gas sector is right now, talking in terms of commercialization, and then privatizing, regulation, and then building a competitive electricity market. It's interesting that the PIA is transitioning towards where you have competitive, market-based, and private sector defined dominated oil and gas market. So it's like a parallel. Now, what are the challenges that we went through? So this is what we did. The core policy of the electricity sector was first, like I said, the National Electric Power Policy and the Electric Power Sector Reform Act. And just early this year, that act has been replaced by the Electricity Act, which basically it enacts most of those provisions. So you have from 18 companies of PSN, we have 11 disclosed, 1 terms of operating generators. These were privatized and sold to highest bidder, those who have the best change management strategies, and those who have the best loss management strategies. Okay, of course, there are some NIP projects, these are details, but Now, the key point I want to focus on is the policy assumptions. You know, it's the assumptions that underline the policy reforms in the electricity sector. The assumption that public enterprise is always a failure, and there's no place for public sector in that activity. Now, if you look at Egypt just they delivered 20,000 megawatts I think last year, completed, I think, with Siemens. Egypt is still a public sector market. They are now moving towards privatizing in about 2-3 years after they have built the capacity, the large market, stable power. The same with South Africa. South Africa is now thinking about privatizing. So, but the notion that underwrote our reform is that government fails. Of course, evidence shows that government fails, but the notion that public sector cannot work or the private sector will always work is wrong. Now, part of it is the notion that the state's job is just regulation, which is not true. In other markets, including in Europe and America, in UK, it started with massive competition. It failed. Even though they have not reversed it, they now use regulation to change, to incentivize efficiency. Now, part of the economics, is that what we call principal agent problem. That the notion that because what causes inefficiency, that the principal cannot control the agent. So the principal, Nigerian citizen, cannot control the managers of those assets. That's what public choice theory says. And because of that, they serve their own interest. Now, but what we're learning is also in economics that even in private sector, principal agent problems exist. And the only way they are solved is through corporate governance rules and through regulation, not necessarily through transfer of ownership. So the point here is we build so much on the who owns the asset that ownership alone will generate efficiency. That's not true, and that's not good economics. So now we see also that once you unbundle, you need high level of coordination, SCADA services for TCN and so forth. So we don't have reliable digital platforms, and that's why you see continuous breakdown and collapses. Why? Because when you unbundle, you increase transaction cost of coordination. You need a smarter, digitalized process to coordinate the dispatch of power, their transport to various nodes. That requires very, very efficient coordination. Okay. So the public enterprise is a failure, and therefore there's no place for public sector in actual economic. Talk about that. Talk about post-budget crisis. Okay. Now, what has been the result post privatization? It's now more than 5 years actually. Since 2013, more than 8 years. When the thing has not worked so far. There are many people point to rigging process and corruption. That's not really the only problem. Problem has been that.
Please permit me to cut you short, sir. We have about 3 minutes, sir.
No, I'm done. This is the last major slide. So people think it's about corruption. Yeah, that's corruption, but also about the problem of design, modeling. And I see two problems. One is modeling, and one is project implementation. Modeling is that we diagnosed the problem wrongly. The problem of the sector was not just publicly owned. It's a problem of a structure that does not incentivize efficiency. And I tell you why. When I was next chairman, government will say, okay, we need to put 5 billion to revive AFAN. I say, no, sir. This is a regulated sector. You need to go through due process. So that we establish first relevance and prudence tech. They don't do those things. So don't assume that the problem is because government owns it. No, the problem might be the complex state-society relation. Why the US Postal works as a public entity. Why public enterprise work elsewhere will not work like it. And why even private entities may not work, even though private entities are working elsewhere. So there is a more complexity than just ownership. So I said the fact has been more of ideological, not based on pragmatic position. There's lack of adaptation and contextualization. You have to adapt institutions to the global institutions to local conditions through good diagnosis. And that's why we talk about China and Asia. We talk about socialism with Chinese characterization, capitalism with Chinese characterization. The post-privatization reinforces the problem of weak institutions in generating growth and economic. The faith in the private sector to provide financing and change management is placed without effective regulation, blind macroeconomy. Radical reform of the Nigerian public sector is critical. You cannot, the replace says, one thing they cannot outsource or outsource is government. You just can't have inefficient, totally unfocused government that's not a developmental government, and expect that by carving out, islands for private sector, you're going to have development. No, look at the Asian model. Look at Southeast under Emma. Everywhere I've got that development, you have to have a state that is aligned to development. We don't have. And in conclusion, I agree that government failure led to the collapse of electricity supply in Nigeria pre-reform. Governance led to resort to private market. Market failure now causes budget failure and inefficiency. There is both a model and design problem. We need gradualism and contextualization. We need commitment, cooperation, and coordination for better. Courage and caution are two vital public values. What I mean by this is that we should be courageous to change system, but we should be cautious in plunging into groupthink and presumptions around how markets work. We should look at our system, look at how they work, and design policies that help us optimize access to energy. Let's not forget, energy dependence requires both availability, reliability, sustainability, renewability. It also requires that these resources are themselves kind of away from conflict areas and possible for you to control even the source of this supply, so that you are independent, able to afford energy sources for our citizens at all times. Thank you very much.
Wow, that was simply phenomenal. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I think Dr. Amadi deserves some virtual applause. I want to see some comments. I want to see some comments on some key nuggets you picked from his 25 minutes speech. In summary, all we need is commitment, coordination, and cooperation in order to have the energy independence that we all crave for. Thank you so much, sir, for the amazing keynote address. We are grateful. Can I see comments? Can I see comments or some nuggets you picked? Okay, I can see some people clapping their hands. Amazing, amazing, amazing. Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Sam Amadi. Because Dr. Sam Amadi, yeah, he's Abuja School of Politics, Thoughts, and Chair Center of Public Policy and Research. Your Excellencies, very distinguished guests, keep dropping your comments. I can see all of them. Keep dropping them. I can see them. I can see them. Thank you. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, we are switching gears immediately to welcome our moderator who will take charge of the panel session. Our moderator, if you are a regular participant of events from Society of Petroleum Engineers Abuja section, you should definitely be familiar with this face. He is an amazing moderator who has worked with Abuja section severally. I'm going to quickly read his bio, and after this, I'll hand over the stage to him. He is a manager with the Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority, and is currently the technical assistant on HSEC matters to the chief executive of the NMDPRA. Prior to his appointment as a technical assistant, he was a team lead of the Environmental Incidents Management Unit in the Health, Safety, and Environment Strategic Business Unit of the defunct Department of Petroleum Resources, which is joined in 2008. He holds a BSc in Botany, Microbiology from the University of Lagos, and an MSc in Energy and Environmental Management from the University of Twente in Netherlands. To date, he has served in various committees across the oil and gas value chain, as well as represented the defunct DPR and AMP, NMDPRA, in several local and international fora. He has also represented the defunct DPR and Nigeria jointly and served on oil and gas related projects to policy formulation committees, and is deeply passionate about the sustainable development of hydrocarbon value chain in the Nigerian oil and gas industry. As a technical assistant, he ensures a seamless integration of HSE considerations and best practices into the regulatory framework of midstream and downstream oil and gas projects and its value chain to achieve sustainable operations and to reduce and eliminate carbon footprints. I can go on and on. He's a member of the Society of Petroleum Engineers and, of course, the Nigerian Environmental Society, NES. Of course, he is married with children, and I should add that his lovely wife is also part of this call. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, your moderator for today, the technical assistant to the Authority Chief Executive on HSEC matters, Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authorities, Atebe Odafe Jerome. Sir, the stage is yours for the next 30 minutes. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, SP Abuja. Thank you again for the opportunity to moderate another thought-provoking session. I do not take this for granted, and I must say the team is really doing a very, very good job. The next thing that we'll do immediately so that we can make judicious use of our time, this is 16:56. We have about 30 minutes. I will quickly introduce the panelists. You've already met the keynote speaker who has delivered a wonderful keynote address. So I'll quickly introduce the panelists. If you could please put up your profiles on the screen so that I can quickly run through it. Then we'll begin to discuss the subject of the day. So the first panelist today is Professor Yinka Omorigbe. She's the President, Nigerian Association for Energy Economics. Professor Yinka Omorigbe, SAN, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, is a Professor of Energy Law at the Nigerian Institute of Advanced Legal Studies, Senior Editor, Harvard Advanced Leadership Initiative Social Impact Review, and most recently, CEO and founder at Etin Power Limited, a clean energy mini-grid company that is focused on providing at least Tier 3 solar electricity to 100% of the people in the totally unserved communities within which it operates. She was Attorney General of Edo State between 2017 to 2020, Chairperson Edo State Task Force Against Human Trafficking 2017 to 2022, Adjunct Professor, Center for Petroleum, Energy Economics and Law, University of Ibadan between 2013 and 2018, Secretary to the Corporation and Legal Advisor, NNPC, between 2009 and 2011, and Dean Faculty of Law, University of Ibadan from 2005 to 2009. She's the President, Nigerian Association of Energy Economics, and President, Nigerian Society of International Law. Professor Omorigbe, good evening, ma. You're welcome. The next panelist will be Professor Peter Onwualu, FAS, President, African University of Science and Technology. I will quickly run through his profile as well. And, Professor Azikiwe Peter Onwualu obtained a BNG degree in agricultural engineering with first class honors in 1982 from University of Nigeria. He later obtained an MENG degree in the same discipline at university in 1986. He obtained a PhD degree in agricultural engineering from the Technical University of Nova Scotia, Halifax, Canada in 1991. He joined the services of University of Nigeria, Nsukka as a graduate assistant in 1983 and rose through the ranks to professor in 1999. Over the years, he has worked in the areas of agricultural power and machinery, agro-processing machinery, biomass engineering, processing of industrial raw materials in science and technology policy. He was head Agricultural Engineering Department, UNN, Director Engineering Infrastructure, National Agency for Science and Engineering Infrastructure, NASENI, Abuja, from 2003 to 2005, Director General, CEO, Raw Materials Research and Development Council, Abuja, from 2005 to 2013, Visiting Professor, NUC, from 2014 to 2015, Coordinator, Science and Technology and Innovation, Thematic Group of Vision 2020, Chairman, Committee of Directors of Research Institute of Nigeria, and a whole lot of other roles that he has occupied to date. He has authored over 200 scientific publications in books, journals, and conference proceedings. Professor Onwualu has received many professional awards, including Presidential Merit, Nigerian Society of Engineers, Individual Honors, Nigerian Society of Engineers, Abuja Branch, Award of Excellence by Nigerian Institute of Physics, Most Distinguished Agricultural Engineer of the Year by Nigerian Institute of Agricultural Engineers. He's a fellow of 12 professional bodies. Yes, he's presently serving in the following positions: 12 President, Nigerian Academy of Engineering from 2022 to 2024, President, Nigerian Branch of International Soil Tillage Research Organization, 2022 to 2023, Board of Directors of African Technology Policy Studies, Nairobi, Kenya, and acting President, African University of Science and Technology, Abuja, Nigeria. Professor Peter Onwualu, FAS, good evening, sir. You're welcome. Good evening, Ma. Good evening, sir.
Thank you.
I believe, yeah,
Thank you
I
very
believe you all can hear me. Everyone in the audience, you can hear me. And keynote speaker as well. I believe you all can hear me. So we have listened to the keynote address, the role of energy independence on national development. The beautiful thing is, having reeled out your accomplishments and what the two panelists currently are involved in, you could see that your accomplishments span different fields, from law to engineering. I mean, so you have cut your teeth, you know, where you ought to. So what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to ask a few questions in line with what we as a country are presently experiencing, so that we can lay a context. Because we're looking at energy independence. And if you look at our country today, energy independence for national development. So if you look at our country today, you will agree with me that we are far from where we want to be. Yes, we are a third world country, and the whole idea is to grow our economy, develop infrastructure-wise, technology-wise, name it. But for us to do that, from what we've listened to today, there has to be a basis for that. And we need to have some sort of independence in terms of how we can manage our energy value chain. The keynote address speaker had mentioned certain things and some challenges that has impacted on our inability to be energy independent, as it were. So my first question now I'll start with Professor Yinka. My first question will be, in your opinion, looking at our energy value chain over the years, what is it specifically that you think we have not been doing right? Now, I know there are lots of issues in terms of supply, distribution, pricing, and all that. And we've had several governments come and make promises genuinely, and they've tried to fix it. But we still find ourselves in this situation where, in terms of energy security, in terms of dependency, availability, they are still lacking. What do you think that we can do as a nation going forward? Baby steps, yes. There is no magic wand. There is no silver bullet. But what can be done? What advice would you put out there, sitting in this panel, to say, okay, if we're going to be energy independent as a country, these are some practical steps that we need to take so that we can achieve our set objectives. Professor Yinka Omorigbe, please. Thank you. Please, you have 3 minutes.
Okay. Yeah, thank you very much. I think that you're probably too far down the street for this question, because I like and believe in going into fundamentals. I believe that the first problem that we have is that we've never planned for energy as a whole in Nigeria. And we have never actually realized the importance of energy to our development and to our livelihood. So in other words, Nigeria, whether it's the government or the people, Nigeria and Nigerians are unable to tie Nigeria's national underdevelopment, because we have continued to go down, to our energy poverty. They are both linked together, and one will not go up unless development will not go up. Our indicators will not go up as long as our energy poverty indicators continue to stay there. We suffer from acute energy poverty, and this is something that is so obvious. So I think that the first thing is we've never planned for energy. I say this a lot. Look at Nigeria and look at our energy sector. Look at the feedstock. First of all, look at hydroelectricity. Why did we move from hydroelectricity in the first place to hydrocarbons? We moved to hydrocarbons. Where are hydrocarbons located? They're located in the Ministry of Petroleum and Energy. It's called energy, but it has nothing to do with power. Where is power and electricity located? It is located in the Ministry of Power. Two different ministries with two different ministers. Where is our energy policy located? Our energy policy is located in the Ministry of Science and Technology, meaning it will never have any bearing whatsoever on anything that is being done in power or in petroleum. And of course, having petroleum in one place and power in another place means that there will not be synergy. So this is the major fundamental problem, not realizing energy is important and not planning for it. If you look at statistics of other countries, you will see that no other country is like us. Look at Egypt. Egypt has a population of 108 million people and is generating 290,000 megawatts. Indonesia is generating 1.2 million megawatts. Look at all the countries. Morocco, that's 38 million, a fraction of Nigeria, is generating 40,000. And then you look at Nigeria and you see 4,500 is megawatts that we have out of an installed capacity of 13.5. This is untenable. Then when you go into the you go into PMS, you go into diesel, you find other horrendous issues. So what is the problem? We haven't realized all this, but I think we haven't realized the importance. But tied to that again, if you're really talking about fundamentals, it is what Dr. Amadi has alluded to, two things: government failure and governance. And those are two issues that will continue to bedevil us unless we talk about them, bring them out of their hiding place and actively attack them. So it's not about privatizing. It's not about government being here. Government goes, privatization comes, but things remain the same because we're not dealing with the underlying issues.
Thank you very much for that response. So you pointed out something. So the audience, please, if you have any questions, you can note them down in the comment section. We will take them as we go along this panel session, please. If you do have any questions, kindly note them down. We'll take them as we go along this the panel session. So you noted something. You mentioned the balkanization of the relevant government actors in the power or energy sector, as it were. And if I can say, you alluded to the fact that because they are all scattered along or in different ministries, there's a lack of synergy, and that will not address this problem that we'll have. So, to Professor Peter Onwalu, can you hear me, sir? Oh yes, thank you very much. You're here. So I will keep her response to one end first. We're going to come back to it, but I'd like to point out something. Currently, as a country, our focus in trying to get out of this energy doldrum we find ourselves, we have decided to move to gas. The decade of gas is what we currently hear. see how we can harness our gas resources, how we can produce as much gas as possible, domesticate it, gas to power, gas-based industries, gas to energy, CNG, LPG, and all the derivatives from gas. The question now is, the world today is moving on from fossils. The world today is saying, we don't want to rely on fossils anymore. What does this portend for Nigeria? How does this affect our energy independence strategy, which is supposed to drive our national development? Bearing in mind that we as a country, we rely majorly on international funding to drive our oil and gas sector.
Okay, thank you. If I get the question right, you want me to speak to the fact that the world is moving to other sources of energy, and we are
yes, sir.
Now. First of all, let me thank the keynote speaker, Dr. Sam Amadi. We couldn't have gotten a better speaker. I think at the time he was the chairman of NEC, was also the time I was heading Raw Materials Research and Development Council. And we tried our bits to see what we could do, and yet we are still, it looks like we are still running around in circles. Let me also thank Yinka, Professor Yinka, for her intervention. This is really a problem that goes beyond what we are generally talking about. I'm a scientist, I'm an engineer, but I don't even agree with some of the things that people are talking about, moving to non-fossil fuels and so on. For the simple reason that if you go to countries like India, and I've gone to quite a number of power plants, a number of cities in India, they are even still powered by coal. So we need to be careful the way we run into, the way we move into some of these things that, yes, it is good to move to cleaner energy solutions. It is good to move to more sustainable, more environmentally friendly solutions. But first of all, you have to get there. Even those technologies or those sources of energy that if you like, say they are traditional or routine, we have not even mastered the technologies. It really borders on what we need and what we want to do as a country. Sometimes we are moving from one to the other. Okay, they say coal is no more good, so we leave coal. It is now oil and gas. We move to oil and gas. Now we are all saying we have to move away from oil and gas to greener solutions such as solar and so on and so forth. So probably we need to abandon this one and move to the other one, whereas we have not even mastered the other technologies. For me, while we are, of course, we can't lose sight of the fact that the world is moving on, but we need to get our acts together and even perfect those ones that are not green, those ones that are even not as sustainable as we would think. And I think the basic problem we have as a country is what the two speakers earlier have already talked about. And we need to find ways of solving this problem. And that is the issue of the way we inherited our governance structure. Let me just give you an example. I know I don't have a lot of time. If you want to buy any electronics product today, whether they are made in Nigeria or not made in Nigeria, you can just walk to Wuse market or any market and buy electronics, depending on your pocket. If you need water, to some extent, you can get water, and so on, and you can give so many other examples. Why is it that some of these products like electricity, we as a nation, we inherited, I guess because we inherited, why are we over regulating? Electricity is a product of the liberalization process. But how far have we gone? You notice that there is still a lot of government, I don't know how to put it. I'm sure Dr. Amadi will guide me on this. It's still a lot, it's still not free. I was very happy recently when I heard that now it's no more, it's now on the concurrent list, which means even state governments can get involved. But I want us to get to a point where government should hands off this completely. That is, I'm talking about the production side. Government should remain on the side of regulation, setting policies and regulating. But the actual production, distribution, and whatever you do to get electricity available to people should be completely liberalized, and people, just like what is happening in the education sector now. We are not there yet, but at least now you have a choice. You can go to private university, you can go to state. In fact, some state governments have even up to 3 universities. I'm not saying that is a perfect model, but my own thinking is that we need to ask ourselves, why is government bent on producing, distributing, and selling electricity? Even when we now have discos and all that, you will notice there is still a lot of government involvement. I think we should, it's just like drugs. Let me use another example. You walk to a pharmacy, you buy drugs, but NAFDAC is there to regulate. But you can get your drugs. So we must get to a point where we have to, at some point, I even asked myself, there's something I tried to do at the time I was in raw material, even to some extent here in African University of Science and Technology. I did a little calculation on the quantity of money, the money we spend on diesel to power generators all over the city. And I said, why can't these institutions come together, find a special purpose vehicle, and have a power plant for Abuja, run by an independent organization under government regulation, of course. And then we take all this money and subscribe. Of course, we tried to do something, and again, this was frustrated by. So what I'm trying to say is that we still have a lot of work to do. If we are to come out of where we are, and this is what Professor Yinka talked about, when we have too many agencies all talking about, power, generation, this, let this thing be a business. That I have my money, I want to buy fuel, I want to buy electricity, it should be available. And it is business. But when government has a way of always believing or thinking that government has to be in control of energy, government has to be in control of oil and gas, government has to be, of course, for obvious reasons, but they can still make that money as government through taxation. Elsewhere, where
Okay, sir.
Okay.
If we could round up. Okay, yeah. Thank you very much.
Elsewhere where these things work, government concentrates on regulation and then collecting money through taxation. But they allow these things to be run by people. So they become business. If you are not able to supply me electricity, I don't pay you, and you will go out of business. And Nigeria is blessed with businessmen and women who can do this. Thank you.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much, sir. So I listened keenly to you, and one of the strong points you raised was you of your opinion that there's so much or too much of government interference in, if I may say, the energy value chain. So maybe like Dr. Sam, the keynote speaker, mentioned, it needs to be liberalized, so players can come in and do what they have to do and stuff. However, this question is to the keynote speaker, and I'll also come back to Professor Morigba and yourself to hear your opinions on this. our power sector as it is today, we all know it is somewhat subsidized. And for a reason. The same thing has just transpired in oil and gas sector in terms of PMS up until recently. Energy, as it were, is a security resource. Countries, so I mean, we're talking about energy independence for national development. So government is really, really interested in the sources of energy, the pricing especially, so that one of the key fundamentals of energy independence, which is affordability, they can meet it. But in this case, if government were to liberalize the sector in its entirety and say, okay, I want this sector to grow, I want this sector to thrive, I want people who are business-minded to come in and take over this sector and ensure that, okay, they get value for the money or the investment that they're putting in. The question is, can Nigerians now afford energy? Energy in terms of LPG, CNG, be it power, I mean, for cooking or for powering their vehicles or for powering their homes. How can government create that balance where there is affordability, it's liberalized, government is not interfering, you know, because indeed that is what we're looking at when we're talking about being energy independent. From cradle to grave of the entire value chain, the people that you're trying to serve can actually afford it, right? And government is playing their role, and the sector itself is being driven in such a way that it is profitable. How can this work? Let's look at our current situation. We're not like Egypt. We're not America. We're not Europe. How can we make this work where it's affordable, government can still like allow the sector to be liberalized, and it's not subsidized that would now make investors not want to bring in their funds into the market? Dr. Sam Amadi, our keynote speaker, can you please just tell us what you think can be done so that this sector can be profitable and yet affordable?
I think I've gotten tired of saying what should be done. Oftentimes, I don't like to talk about the sector. I like to talk about that. But we can't run away from it. Don't know, is there a magic one? I'm not sure. But what can be done and what has been done everywhere? The formula, there's a formula for success, is basically thinking carefully about your problems. I think there's so much. Nigeria has a tendency not to stay on the problem for long. If we call a conference, 2, 3 conferences, people say, we have had too many conferences, we know what to do. What if people will call up to 100 conferences, research works, experts, before they now say this is where we're going? So I think we have this inclination to think deeply about the problem. We should now accept that there's a problem. If three governments have failed since Obasanjo, at least to solve the problem, then there's something different. Number 2, I think that the problem also requires some time, because you need to see some changes, quick improvement. So I would recommend that government should have a strong task group, we call it Presidential Task Force, that will focus on short-term improvement. There are some of these collapses, failures that are avoidable. They're not like about, they don't go to the design and structure of the market. They are basically people are not doing their work. So you can improve short-term in increments, like what Fashola said, he called incremental power, but he didn't focus on it, probably doing contracts. But incrementally, put an eye that there are no slippages, that what we have today, whether it is 7,000 available, we try as much as possible to evacuate it and have them serve to customers. Short-term, project management, efficient, tax team. In the medium term, you need to rebuild the capacity of the regulator. You now incentivize expansion and improvement of network. So the DisCos, GenCos keep on making the right investments, and then you try and provide for financial viability through better communication on tariff. You see, Nigerians can pay more tariff. We need to be more, we need to communicate better, show good faith. Let the DisCos start improving. It may not be power. See, there are dimensions of electricity. There is the power you get. There are services, what you call electrical services, including customer care. They all build into confidence. So if the regulator improves, forces or nudges the operators to improve their service in terms of customer care, it provides opportunity, a space for increment in tariffs and improvement in quality of supply. You have to, you can't just talk about tariff increase, not talking about improvement in quality of service. In the medium to long term, you have to go back and rethink the notion of private sector and public sector. Maybe government should be more involved in providing financial support to private sector. Government could consider procuring those services and allowing private sector to run it under strong government, smart government oversight. So nothing stops, it's difficult globally for private sector to provide you transmission services, build you network of road network, build roads for you. It's difficult because they are not going to optimize profits from those investments, call them public good, because there are no rivals. They can't exclude people for using them. So government has to find a way to socialize the risk and allow private sector drive it for efficiency. So we need to rethink, and I think Prof. Omoro, we need to rethink the framework and the design of public-private partnership so that critical investments that the private sector may not make because they can't see clear the part of cost recovery. We assume that because we have energy supply demand gap, therefore there's profitability. No, that profitability is kind of intertwined with difficulties, with risks, with political risk, as well as commercial risk. And so oftentimes government leads in biting the bullet, and the private sector goes in to deliver on specified, well-designed projects. So I think we might, in the medium to long term, try to rethink the design of the digital marketing. Just like we talk about Petrobras or talk about other publicly owned, maybe privately managed oil and gas companies that are doing well globally. It has to deal with understanding three levels of this. One, commitment to profitability and to efficiency. See, why does government fail? Yeah, government fails because they don't give the right people the job and they don't have a clear sense of deliverable. So I want to see a more creative public-private partnership that allows government to do what private sector may not want to do now, allow private sector to do what they do best, which is problematic.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. Professor Yinka Omorigbe, so the same question, like what's your opinion? Power is not cheap. We want government to hands off. I mean, that's what we're saying. We want the space to be taken over by vendors or businessmen who really want to add value. If government does that, can Nigerians afford power? How will this play out? We're seeing it again. I'm just trying to repeat it. We're seeing it again, like we're seeing with the PMS subsidy thing, where it was removed, and I mean everybody's yet screaming that the prices of PMS is too high. Can we afford an energy sector? I use energy now because energy encompasses everything that is fully liberalized, void of subsidy. Can we do that as a country? Or how do we get to that point where we can run an energy sector that is void of government interference, subsidies, and stuff like that? What's your opinion on that?
Well, thank you very much. I have to say that I don't believe in the government being in the business, in the business world. I believe that the responsibility of government is to create an enabling environment and to set down the correct framework for whatever industry they're involved in. And I believe that the hand of the government should not be a heavy hand. I believe that regulations should be fully adhered to in an impartial, independent manner, which means that once I comply with the terms stated in the regulation, I should get whatever it is I'm asking for. So there should be no desks, no tax collection points or whatever. So based on that, I think we really need to look back and say that at the end of the day, I have to say that our problem has primarily been one of governance, but underlying it is something that Dr. Amadi mentioned, and that is the fact that we generally don't plan in Nigeria. We are short on planning. We don't take that time to make sure that we've thought through as much as possible, knowing that you can't think through absolutely everything, because if we had done that, I think we'd probably have done privatization better. Our problem is not privatization. Our problem is how we privatized and who we privatized to and what it was that we really wanted to do. The truth is that within the electricity sector, I think the one area where you need government to a great extent is the transmission network. At least for Nigeria at this point, it has remained in a very awful sense state since privatization. So that's one area where you really need government. But otherwise, I think if you give the competent people, the government's hand doesn't have to be in so heavy. The other area where the government comes in is in the area of subsidy, but you find that practically every nation subsidizes to an extent, some areas, vulnerable areas. So it's not totally left. There's a recognition that electricity is essential. In many places, it's regarded as a right. There is the right of access to modern energy services. I believe in it because without energy, you're actually dead in many ways. Your life cannot progress in any way. So we need to think in that sense. Now, when we're talking about the cost of energy, I think we all need to know that we all pay far more than whatever that amount is that our DISCO is charging us. First of all, nobody has electricity for 24 hours in the whole of Nigeria. If you do, you are one of those special concessionaires, special people in special estates that the DISCOs are concentrating on. Secondly, those who can afford it are buying petrol, buying diesel. By the time you look at your costs have flown up. Thirdly, half of Nigeria doesn't even have any of all this. So it's a big issue. There isn't time to talk about this and talk about pricing in the first place. But I think that in a nutshell, I mean, Dr. Amadi suggests palliatives. I don't believe in palliatives in this area. I believe restructure completely. We have something that's really broken down. And I don't see that a palliative here, a task force here to say what is the task force talking about? So I think that we need to treat it in a far more holistic fashion, and above all, mend the fundamental defects and at least make sure that the one holding the feast is operating very well with the one that is operating the business, and the one that's supposedly planning for the entire sector can even talk to these people and be heard. So that is really my position.
Thank you very much, Ma, for your apt response. Professor Peter Onwalu, I know the keynote address speaker has spoken, Professor Yinka has spoken, but I also want to get your thoughts on this issue as well. What are your thoughts, please?
Yes, the issue of affordability and people being able to pay, if you say throw it open to everybody. Of course, governments, I understand the point that there are some sectors of the economy that border on social service, on security, things like water, roads, and of course, we are talking of energy, we are talking of electricity. But having said that, we have also seen that Our problem is our inefficiency, especially when government is involved. I've been in government for a little while, and I understand the challenges we have in governance. And that is why I'm saying maybe the model we inherited is what our problem is. And I think we tried to solve this problem when we came to the point of unbundling. So we now have these DISCOs, GENCOs, and so on. One of the solutions I want to suggest is that we can break these things down to smaller levels, from where we are now to smaller levels. What do I mean by that? We can get to a point where, for example, a city like Abuja can be concessioned to one company. Another city, now that state governments are getting involved through the reform that we have. If, for example, we break it down to smaller units, maybe, I'm saying maybe, the cumbersomeness of having to generate energy, put it on the national grid, begin to transmit, begin to distribute. If we're able to localize energy production and distribution, I think it may work. And then we have smaller companies dealing with smaller units. And then you bring in off-grid electricity, which means you really everybody don't have to be on the national grid. And then you encourage people to go into off-grid, smaller units, so that what we do at the national one would be smaller. That is where everybody depends on national electricity. But to solve the problem of affordability, of course, there are other areas, and I give you one example. When you look at the energy sector, the electricity sector, what percentage of the technology or the process that is used is local? You find that almost everything we do is offshore. In oil and gas, in electricity generation, 80 to 90% of what we are doing, all the things, even in distribution, everything is almost imported, including the knowledge, including the technology that we are. Technology, of course, is in both hardware and software. So I think that one area that we need to look at is the area of developing these technologies locally. Of course, technology is global, but if some of these technologies are developed locally, it will create jobs, and at the same time, the costs can begin to come down. A situation where 100% of what you need to build a refinery is imported. A situation where even the power plants, the only thing available in the power plant, for example, in Kainji, is probably the water. Even the water, we are not able to control it. So you find that this is also a major component that is affecting us. We need to look into R&D to promote. That is even where government should come in, to promote research and development so that we can begin to increase the local content in the sector, so that people within the economy can produce some of the things we need. A situation where from production to transmission to distribution, even the meter in my house is imported. Of course, we are making progress because some of the meters are now made in Nigeria, but visit those factories and find the percentage of what they use in manufacturing the meters that are local. So this is also an area that I think we should look at in the long run. While we break down these things, we should try to find a way to increase the local content of these, both the knowledge and everything, and then hopefully the cost of production and distribution can come down.
Thank you very much, Professor Peter. I think, Professor Yinka, you wanted to say something? Okay, because our time is fast spent, but I would...
I need to tell him that all the industrial stuff he's talking about is powered by energy in the first place. So all the different things that we need to do, we need the energy for. So there's a bit of the chicken and egg situation. I think we need to remember that. Yes, and that other countries in the same position are still doing well. I mean, for God's sake, we have Morocco with 40,000 megawatts and 38 million people. With such figures in the room, we really can't make excuses. That's honestly the truth.
Okay, thank you very much, Ma. So I will take that as your final words. So Dr. Sam Amadi, final words, please, before I go back to Professor Peter for his final words, then I can wrap up the session. Thank you. Yes, so Dr. Sam. Oh, yes, okay, your final words, please.
Well, what I would say is, look, I heard Prof talk about the debate over renewable energy. I think we should make it slowly. When I was NEC chairman, I said that we have to optimize our fossil fuel deposit first and transition. You don't transition empty-handed. Secondly, the technological reliability we need for this clean energy, we're assuming that, look, we failed in the fight in the fossil age. We fail in the fight in the green age if we don't get the fundamentals right. So I'm not one of those eager people who say, let's go clean energy. No, let's get energy by all means. Then we transition. South Africa has a phase plan. You get energy, you transition gradually. So that's where I start. And again, yes, to reply to Professor Yinka, well, I didn't say you should manage the structure as bad. I'm saying that you need to be efficient in optimizing everything, even as you move away. You can't have a small collapse every day because nobody's monitoring the system. You have to be efficient to manage it, even as you are moving. Even if you want to disband it now, if you don't develop that managerial competence of paying attention, imagine a line goes on because the officer who's supposed to be there has gone in party and they're using touch, using cell phone instead of SCADA to manage their network. So even if you are Egypt or they become US or China today, if you don't develop those managerial capabilities, civil service, that's important. Private sector is not the one running the grid for you. You have to have an efficient public sector working together with a well-managed private sector. Let me end by this. Private sector's business is not providing you power or gas or oil, it's to make money. It's their business to convert that private interest to public good by very strong state competence. State effectiveness is what we like in Nigeria. That's
Thank you very much, Dr. Sam Amadi, and I agree with you completely. I also want to agree with Professor Yinka's comments. Net zero is not zero carbon, absolutely correct. It's just balancing it. Produce your oil and gas sustainably and ensure that you reduce your emissions as low as practically possible. Professor Peter Onwalu, final statements, please.
Yes, I believe that in terms of policies, we have the policies. In terms of institutions, we also have institutions that came out of the policies. I think our problem as a nation is ensuring that these policies are actually implemented. Most of the problems we have is our inability to implement policies. So I think the policies we have in place, we need to take a second look at them, especially from the angle of implementation. And then secondly, I also agree with my colleagues that we need to look at building strong institutions. If we have strong institutions, whether they are institutions for regulation or institutions for production, distribution, and management of the power, then of course, things will go well. Some of the suggestions we are making, such as off-grid and so on, is because of failure of institutions. Institutions and policies that have worked elsewhere, they come to Nigeria and they are not able to work. So I think the major thing I would leave with is that as a nation, we need to ensure that all the different policies we have, we drive them to the end. We don't start a policy, oh, it's not working, we change, and so on. At the end of the day, we have not even achieved anything. So policy implementation and ensuring consistency in our policies and pushing to the end when we can have solutions. And then making sure that our institutions are made to be strong in such a way that whether they are doing monitoring evaluation, or they are doing regulation, or they are doing investment promotion and so on, they are able to do their work and get the private sector to be able to work, whether they are providing incentives, or they are providing regulation, or they are providing a better business environment for these private sector operators to be able to survive.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much, panelists and keynote speaker. Before we go, there's one question from Mr. Victor Anoche. Please, could you ask your question before I round off the session and hand over to our hosts? Mr. Victor Anoche. Mr. Victor, are you there? Is Mr. Victor still on this call, please? Your hands are up, Mr. Victor.
He's still on the call, but I don't think you can hear him.
Mr. Victor, can you hear me? Your hands are up. You can quickly ask your question. 10 seconds.
Can you hear me?
So that we can... Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay,
Go ahead, please. Thank you.
So my question is directed to Professor Yinka, and any other person can also contribute. You see, we talk about moving to CNG, and lately I've heard some people in government talk about LPG. I think there's a problem here, because moving from our normal petroleum to gas is not really going to solve the problem. I think the government is actually running away from the problem by fixing our refinery and looking for cheap solution. Why I say this is because Professor Yinka talked about modern energy services. If you look around, there are a lot of people that don't have access to clean cooking solution. It's a very big problem. I remember we did a project and we fabricated a cooker, with gas, and then we gave it to a woman that sells akara. For those of you that are international viewers, akara is a popular food in Nigeria. And after some time, we gave it to the woman as a gift with gas cylinder and everything. And after some time, we discovered that she abandoned it and she went back to using her wood, And we know the issues associated with cooking with firewood, because we talked about the Nigeria meeting the SDG goals. You know that trying to get firewood, you have health challenges, access to education, even poverty, a lot of challenges that comes with it. Now, if we say we want to start to use gas, especially using LPG for transportation and other means, are we not creating another problem? Because currently people cannot afford gas, and now we want to mount more pressure on gas, which can also increase the cost, because there will be demand and it's going to increase the cost. So won't this be another problem? So I think a lot of people are not really paying attention in this area. We just want to switch. So I don't know if Prof can, or any of the speakers can throw light, because personally I see this as moving from one problem into a bigger problem. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Can I speak?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. First of all, Nigeria's gas, I think we are still one of the biggest flarers of associated gas in the world. So we have a problem of extreme wastage. Secondly, this is the decade of gas, and we're supposedly supposed to be involved in many different gas initiatives. For CNG, I know there are some things happening with CNG, not as fast as they should be, in my own opinion. And at the same time, we have huge problems with LPG, which is getting far more expensive. I think that if you had maybe worked hand in hand with a sociologist, I don't know your background, I think you're an engineer though. Yes, but then look, if you worked with a sociologist, the first thing you'd have to do is ask the woman why she's not using the gas again. And you're going to find, number one, price will be a pressure, will be a problem, no doubt at a point, very likely to be. But secondly, changing people's patterns and habits is not always that straightforward. So it's a process, it's not just a one for all time. You have to change in different ways. And so you find that changing, converting people from using firewood totally to using cleaner fuels, and there are other cleaner fuels, there are different biofuels, etc., involves working with the people, often hand-holding them, and ensuring that at the end of the day, they understand their benefits, what benefits they have in using cleaner cooking. Well, cleaner cooking is I would say harder, but it's not impossible, and it's necessary, and definitely we do need to do that. You know, there is no way out of it.
Okay, thank you very much, ma. I don't know if the keynote speaker, Dr. Sam, wants to add his voice, or Professor Peter would like to say something regards this concern raised by Mr. Victor. But while you are putting your thoughts together, if indeed you are, I'd like to mention that, so CNG is what is being worked on as an alternative to PMS, based on pricing, as it were. Our current LPG market is still mostly an imported dependent market. So we cannot afford to begin to use LPG for powering vehicles at this point. And I speak as a regulator, not a moderator now, right, with the NMDPRA, and I can tell you for certain that it is not an area we are going to push Nigerians towards. No, because we've looked at this situation as well, just the way you've considered it, and we know that indeed we have not even saturated the LPG market enough for clean cooking that we want to, you know, get Nigerians to begin to use LPG to cook. We cannot now begin to push them to use LPG to power vehicles. It's going to become, I mean, a huge sort of competition, and the prices will only skyrocket. The current prices that you see that are going up is because it's import dependent. What's the price of crude and gas goes up in the international market? The same thing applies to the Nigerian market, right? So it's there are two separate things. It's not an option that we're willing to take on board at this point. Far from it. Even ethanol, for example, just to divert a bit, biofuels, right? Other countries blend PMS with ethanol to give you some sort of cleaner fuel, because it burns cleaner and releases lesser carbon, monoxide to the atmosphere. Why are we not doing likewise in Nigeria? We've had several proposals where people come and say, okay, can we take grains from Nigeria, process it, get out ethanol and blend it with a local PMS? And we're like, hey, it seems like a good idea on paper. Excellent. But we have not fed our teeming populace. People are still not, they don't have enough food to eat. And grains is one of our staples, like you're aware. So if we open that chapter, what is likely to happen is there'll be a lot of interest in converting grains to ethanol, then there'll be food scarcity and shortage. And you know what will happen? So we take these things very seriously, and we do like a 360 review of any proposals, even if they are like seemingly very good, before we decide whether or not they can be put on the table and developed further. So I don't know if Professor Peter or Professor Dr. Sam wants to add anything to the question Mr. Victor asked. Otherwise, we'd like to round up. We're far behind time. So
yes,
if you allow me, okay, Professor.
Just one intervention.
All right, sir.
I hear and I see a lot of these attempts to switch to. Of course, these are all good, but my own position in this is, let us face the problem. I don't believe in meeting a problem and then beginning to look for, sidetrack the problem to look, because when you get to the other one, you will still run into another problem, just like you were rightly saying. We can solve the problem of PMS if we get our acts together. Those in the sector know what the problem is. It's just that we have refused as a nation to solve the problem. Nations produce PMS from crude oil, and we can do it. Why are we not getting our refineries to work? If the refineries work, somehow the price will come down. I believe so. But I don't believe because we cannot produce PMS, we're all importing, therefore this one is a better option, and we begin to convert vehicles and so on. It will create another problem down the road. So I believe that the problem is that we as a nation, we should tackle this PMS issue head on. And I think the solution is in local production. And of course, it comes with a number of things. Getting the refinery to work, like Professor Yinka already said. For you to get the refinery to work, you need even the energy also. You need power to do that. You need money, you need all that. But I don't think the solution is impossible for us. We just need to get down to it. There is no way we can solve our energy independence without local production. Whether the factory is imported, though, but there has to be local production. Gradually, we can then master the craft and begin to produce, at least to some extent, our own PMS. I think that's just the solution I would recommend. I don't believe in running away from the problem.
Thank you very much, Professor Peter Onwalu. Once again, let me say thank you to our keynote presenter, Dr. Sam Amadi, the panelists, Professor Yinka Omorigbe and Professor Onwalu. At this juncture, I'd like to bring this panel discussion to an end, but I'll just summarize by saying, having heard what all our speakers have said on the subject on ground, they have raised some key points, and they've also preferred some very pertinent solutions. They mentioned having local alternatives, looking at local content. The government should regulate, create an enabling environment for businesses to thrive and collaborate with the private sector. Very important, as much as possible, reduce the level of interference and allow businesses to thrive. There should be synergy. The relevant government actors in the energy value chain should all be brought under one umbrella, possibly, if that is the case, and so that they can work together, have a proper strategic objective in ensuring that Nigeria becomes energy independent. And of course, there has to be an efficient governance structure in place. Looking at all these cocktail of solutions, if we can put this together effectively, then we can begin to talk of a short-term and a long-term plan to ensure that Nigeria eventually becomes energy independent. And of course, that will eventually mean that we as a country would develop nationally. Thank you again, SPE, for this opportunity to moderate this session. I'll now hand over to Mr. Akpan Ofonono. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dafe Atabi. You agree with me that the moderator did an excellent job. I can see all of the comments in the chat box. It shows how robust the conversation was. Thank you so much. Please, can we give a virtual round of applause to our moderator? Thank you. Please drop the comments there. He's done an amazing work. And of course, we celebrate all of the phenomenal speakers, from our keynote speaker, Dr. Amadi, to Professor Yinka, to the president of AUST, Professor Onwalu, and of course, every single participant. I would like to especially recognize the presence of some personalities that joined this call. We see on the call a respected figure from PTI, and of course, SPE Warri section, Dr. Sarah Nwime. We see her comment in the chat box. Thank you so much, ma, for joining us here today. We also see the HOD of Petroleum Engineering from AUST, Dr. Elfius Igbokoyi. Welcome, sir. We thank you for joining us here today. And of course, the director from Emerald Energy Institute, we'd like to say thank you to Professor Wumi Iledare for sparing our time to be part of today's event. Professor Wumi, is there anything you want to say before we wrap up? Because you know, you're a champion in this course. Welcome, sir.
Oh, thank you for recognizing me. And by the way, I'm no longer Emerald Energy Institute Director. Please, I'm the director for Emmanuel Egbuga Foundation for Public Policy Advocacy. But thank you again for the opportunity. And I want to thank the panelists. We have to continue to talk the talk, but we must walk the talk. Thank you, Madam President, and Professor Nwalu, Professor Amadi, and the moderator from the authority, Odafe. And I think SP Abuja section deserves quite a lot of appreciation. No wonder SP recognized them as a section of excellence. So keep the flag flying. Thank you again. Energy independent with petroleum subsidies and energy subsidies is a dream that is far to accomplish. As long as continue to subsidize energy consumption without subsidizing energy production, you cannot attain energy independence. In fact, the reason why you have unconventional gas resources today is because of the tax incentives that the US gave to permit technology advances and horizontal drilling technology. When we continue to subsidize energy production, energy consumption, energy independence is just a dream. These are just my opinion, and thank you for the opportunity. Bless you.
Thank you, Professor Wimi, leader from the Emmanuel Igboga Foundation. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it has been an amazing session. We are going to wrap up the event shortly in the next 5 minutes. This is a current call that we are close to December and renewal of SP membership is on. If you're a member of SP, I think it's time to renew your membership already. Not renewing your membership makes you miss out of all of these amazing events we organize for the section and several other opportunities which we share on our platform. So we kindly advise that you renew your membership. The fee is there on the screen. The account details is also on the screen. Take a screenshot, kindly make a call or send a DM on WhatsApp to our membership chair. His number is there on the screen, Engineer Rome Ogolo. I think he's on the call. He also joined during the lecture. Send a call message to him and he will direct you on how to be a member of SP. We are available on all social media platforms from YouTube. This event and past events is streamed on YouTube. So you can always go back and refresh your memory. We're on Facebook, we're on LinkedIn, we're on Twitter, we're on X, I beg your pardon, and we're also on Instagram. Should you want to send an email, spabujasection.info@gmail.com, and of course, we'll respond as soon as possible. This is also an information that NIES 2024 is holding from the 5th to 7th of August 2024, and there is a call for abstract submission. Kindly visit SP Abuja pages like I shared earlier on, and you have information on how to submit. The deadline for submission of abstracts is 14th of December. Submission started on the 4th of October, so we advise that you please partake and submit your abstracts to be part of the technical sessions during NIES 2024. Wrap up the events by calling on our program's chair, of course, Dr. Ikechi Okafor, for his closing remark. And after that, we take a group photo and call it a day. Dr. Ikechi, please, the virtual stage is yours.
Okay, thank you, Akpan. An amazing independence lecture, you would agree with me. Having to listen to the amazing Dr. Sam Amadi, Professor Yinka Omode, Professor Peter Onwabi, and our wonderful moderator, Odafe. It's a pleasure, and from SP Abuja, we say thank you to everyone who has joined in. Professor Wini, we thank you. I mean, you said something very remarkable. As long as we continue to subsidize energy consumption without subsidizing energy production, energy independence is a wide good change. And I agree with you. In reality. There's so much we can do, but it all starts from us giving our voice, supporting what we are doing here in SP Abuja, and pushing for excellence. I mean, SP Abuja is a section known for excellence. We've done it before now, we are still doing it again, and all of this is possible. Your support, my amazing section here,
Thank you for leading this section in an amazing way. And it's all possible because we have amazing members, we have amazing people coming through. I want to thank everyone who has joined. And the next time we call on you to join, you can be sure that we are bringing the best of the best in their area of expertise to speak to us about anything SC Abuja wants. Thank you for joining us. Thank you and God bless.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. The conversation has come to the event has come to an end. Of course, the conversation continues. Please, at this juncture, we'd like to kindly request that you turn on your video cameras, so that we can take a quick video shot. Let's see your fine faces from all parts of our